In today's video, I'm going to cover the best and worst of what has sold in the Toronto and GTA real estate market in the last couple of days. And by doing so, we get to discuss all different types of topics: Midtown, Downtown, North York, Richmond Hill, different areas, different property types, and everything you should know. As always, let's get to it. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. As always, back with another video for you guys here today. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Sam, a Toronto real estate agent working with buyers and sellers across the GTA. On this channel, I like to discuss everything Toronto real estate market oriented, whether it be market stats, market trends, market news, buyer advice, seller advice, area analysis, building reviews, videos like these. So if you're interested in any of this or you find it of value, feel free to subscribe and follow. It really means a lot and it supports the channel a lot as well. Furthermore, feel free to get in touch with me directly with any questions you may have or inquiries with regards to the Toronto real estate market. My contact info on the screen and in the description box. Anyways, enough of that. Let's get to the point of today's video. Now, a couple of key prefaces and I'll try to keep it quick. Obviously, there's thousands and hundreds of sales occurring every single day. So I only kept this video to York region and Toronto. And I just picked a couple of sales out of the list, areas I know, buildings I'm familiar with, to break down whether I think they're good sales or bad sales. Now, a second key preface is the fact that it's just my opinion, right? I don't want anyone to get offended if I were to say, for instance, a certain property was bought over market value, because I don't know the context, right? Maybe that buyer really loved that property. Maybe there was an emotional connection that you cannot quantify. So this is all to say, this is just my opinion and please don't take it the wrong way. Because most often those people who even overpay for a property know they're doing so, they're just infatuated with the property for any given reason. But let's start. Let's start with the sale that occurred in 11 Brokerage, which is at the major intersection of Yonge and Sheppard. It's part of the North York condo market. So we're looking in North York, Toronto here with regards to condos. So just a couple of days ago from the recording of this video, this unit in 11 Brokerage Avenue, unit 1704, sold for $675,000. Now, I'm very familiar with this building, and one of my greatest claims to fame even to this day is I still hold the record in this building for this exact unit type in terms of highest sold price ever, which a while back, last February or January, I sold a unit in this building, this exact unit actually, 10 floors higher for $730,000, and that price hasn't been really achieved since in this building. Now, of course, the market was really hot, so I'm not going to give myself all the credit, but I think I did a pretty good job still. Nonetheless, it's not 600 to 699 square feet, despite what the listing will say. It's truly not. As I said, I know this building very well. I know these units very well. It's a 1+1 with one washroom. The actual square footage is closer to the 500 square feet range. It's western exposure, and these 04 units, that is their best attribute, is their western exposure, because the western exposure of this building, these Brokerage buildings, are completely unobstructed and safe from any future potential obstruction due to the fact that, as you guys can see, they're exposed directly to residential detached, and these $3 to $4 million properties are not going anywhere anytime soon. Overall on the building, I'm very mixed. I actually think it's one of the more overhated buildings. Don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna rank it in my top 10, top 15 buildings by any means, but I think it's not as bad as people make it out to be. As we go through the pictures of this unit, we see slowly that the +1 is not really truly a +1. In this building, these +1s are actually just a media room. I even had to work with that when I was selling one of these units. I had to make mention to the showings that, hey, the +1, by the way, is not a legitimate den. It's more so just a media room, once again. On all things considered, I must say that it's actually a decent purchase, because unit 2504 in this same exact building, which is the most recent sold comp, sold for $20K more, $695,000. It was on a higher floor, but the flooring, the actual floor itself, was not hardwood. This seems to be actual engineered hardwood or quality laminate. The flooring for the other unit was a little bit cheaper, you can tell. But nonetheless, same size, a couple of floors higher. Sold for $695, $694. This sold for $675. It's completely online with what you would expect. So it's a pretty okay buy. Now let's swing all the way to Richmond Hill and change property types completely. Let's take a look at a detached property that sold in North Richmond Richville, Richmond Hill. So here we have 52 Mavern Crescent, which sold for $1,445,000. March 26, 2023. I'll have you know that the time of recording of this video is actually March 29. It's 3+1 with 3 washrooms. And if you're not familiar with the North Richville community, it's actually one of my favorite communities in Richmond Hill. It's not the most expensive or the most prestigious, but it's actually getting up there, right? It's relatively cheaper compared to South Richville. It's relatively cheaper compared to parts of Mill Pond, but overall, I think it's actually the best neighborhood. Now, I may be biased because when my parents moved to Canada, that's the first place they ever purchased a home, is the North Richville community. So maybe there's some bias involved there, but it's just my opinion once again that it's probably the best community in Richmond Hill, all things considered. And the sale price of 1.445 is on the higher side. It is indeed, and the sale of 1.445 is actually on the higher side. Now, as we will go through the pictures, you guys will see that it is a middle-aged property. It's not as if it has tons of work done, but it's not completely outdated either. The kitchen is very clean and well put together, but it's a little bit on the more awkward layout side. It's technically a side split, this property. As you can see, the parquet floors, once again, in great condition upstairs, but a little bit outdated. Overall lot size, this is very important obviously when we're assessing detached or even semis in some instances. 50 by 137. And the best comp I was able to find in most recent memory was this sale of 27 Law Crescent. Now, it was not a side split, it was a proper 2-story, and the lot size is smaller, right? It's the same exact size in terms of frontage, but the depth is smaller, right? This is 120 feet, that one was 137 or so. And the sale price here we're looking at is $1,312,000. It also had 1 washroom more. So the other listing, so as you guys can see, this one only has 3 washrooms. They both have a single car garage and both have equal amount of parking spaces. But as you guys can see from the pictures inside, it was way more outdated, right? I mean, the green carpet, some people like that, I don't. The parquet floors here, the cabinets were even more outdated, right? The kitchen appliances were more outdated. So this one definitely needed a lot more work done inside as opposed to the one we're assessing, which is 52 Mavern. This one, 27 Law Crescent, which sold for $1,312,000. As you guys can see, just different color carpets in different rooms for some reason. I'm not sure why, but you know, needed a lot more work done. I mean, this is the basement once again, and this is definitely original. It has not been touched whatsoever. But the difference in terms of the amount of work that 27 Law Crescent needs done as opposed to the property we're assessing in terms of 52 Mavern Crescent is not the difference in price, right? This one sold for $1,445,000, whereas the other one, the comp that we're using to assess if this was a good sale or not, sold for around $130,000 less at 1.3. So this one also had a bigger depth as we saw, and it's on a better street. Mavern Crescent is a better street, although Law Crescent is more private and you have more privacy. Mavern is a more sought after street because of the trees. So overall, I would have to say this purchase, according to the comp, was still on the okay side of things, but a little bit overpriced. Now let's swing all the way to downtown Toronto from Richmond Hill. And as I said, I'm trying my best to cover all areas. I mean, there's a lot of sales that I could have picked through the last week, but I just randomly picked these. But let's go downtown to downtown Toronto and take a look at this sale in 633 Bay Street. Here we have 633 Bay Street, unit 2522, which sold for $545,000, as you see there, on March 22nd, 2023. So 1+1 with 1 washroom once again, no balcony, and obviously no parking. Now the thing you have to know about this building is that it's one of the older buildings on Bay Street. Now there are a lot of old buildings on Bay Street that I like. This one I'm kind of neutral on in terms of older buildings on Bay Street. I think there are better older buildings on Bay Street. The 760 Bay Street buildings, the 1001 Bay Street building, some of the 800 Bay Street buildings. I would rank 633 lower on my list, but it's still better than a lot of buildings, believe it or not. So to assess the quality of this list, once again, I looked at the best comps in the building and we found these. Unit 2602 and 633 Bay Street sold for about $559,000. But this was actually a little bit further back than we want to, right? We want to keep the comps as close as possible in time. Now, although it says the prox square footage is 6 to 699, just like the other one, this is actually a bit bigger. I found the square footage for this unit and it's bigger by 25 or 24 square feet. Exposure is about the same, right? It's both northern facing. And then the other comp I found was unit 2609, which is a little bit closer to the time of recording of this video, December 16, 2022, selling for $555,000. Better exposure, also bigger. And as we will see from the original here, the interior condition of the original sale here is once again original. No work has been done. All this is original from when it was purchased, and it definitely needs, you know, I wouldn't say a ton of work, but a fair amount of work in terms of the carpet, in terms of if someone wants to touch the washrooms. And you see the northern exposure here is less than ideal. Well, with this one that sold in more recent memory in terms of December, we see unit 2609, we see that the interior is about the same in terms of how much work it needs. Original carpet, once again, the kitchen still outdated, but at least it's southern exposure. It's a bit bigger and the layout is practically the same, and it is on one higher floor. Now, all things considered, I would probably have to say that this sale we're looking at in terms of 2522 at 545 is a okay sale, but I think there was more space to negotiate down the price according to the comps. However, the reason I do say it's an okay sale nonetheless is because the time of this sale occurring, we're in a hotter period than we were in December and November of 2022. There's no question about that. It's natural. It's a spring market that was towards the end of the year, but inventory is still low and the market is a bit stronger than a lot of people expected. I covered all these factors in my most recent videos, obviously. So they were definitely dealing with more difficult market conditions on the behalf of buyers, as opposed to those sales that occurred that we used as comps earlier. All right, for the final property, let's swing all the way back up to Richmond Hill. And going forward in future videos, obviously, once again, I can't go through every single transaction that occurs on a daily basis for this series, but I'll try my best to pick a variety of different properties from a variety of different areas and expand the criteria as much as possible. But for this last property, this was actually probably one of the, how do I put it politely, the least ideal sales that occurred during this duration we're taking a look at, which was a unit in 9205 Yonge Street. And let me tell you why. Let's go through the listing here quickly, which is this unit in 9205 Yonge Street, unit 1907. Once again, as we see, sold very recently in March, the 21st of March. Now, based on the list selling price, you might think they got a very good deal because they were asking for $888,000 and they bought for $795,000. But that's not a good way to determine something, right? If something is worth only in fair market value $4 to $6, but the person asking for it is asking, but the person selling it is asking for $20 and you end up getting it at $15, you might think you got a very good deal because you got a $5 less than they were asking, but you still got it way more than it was, I think, valued. And once again, this is my opinion, merely my opinion, because I can't quantify how much this buyer loved this unit. Maybe this unit was perfectly in distance with their family and friends and they loved the neighborhood. I overpay for things all the time in my personal life, and that would have certain qualitative qualities that you cannot reduce down to price in terms of memories, nostalgia. But this is all just to say, purely just from the listing and not knowing the context, even though they got it way below asking, it's still, I think when we look at the comps, and we'll go through the images here, they could have worked the price down some more. Now, with regards to this building in particular, I'm actually not a fan of this building, and it's actually 4 buildings. It's referred to as the Beverly Hills Condos. It's a resort style condominium project of 4 buildings with nail salons and pet spas and spas in the lobby. And the building itself is really meant to kind of recreate the feeling of a resort. Is located very centrally right at Yonge and 16th Avenue, but I'm just not a fan of these 4 buildings. And I've sold in this building actually, right? And I've visited this building many times with interested buyers, but I've always made my opinion known. Now, this unit itself was a 2-bedroom, 2-washroom. As you guys can see here, they actually had the exact square footage. I didn't have to look for it, 911 square feet with 1 parking and southwestern view. The best comp I was able to find actually for this listing that sold, unit 609 in 9201 Yonge Street. Now, once again, keep in mind, it's 4 separate buildings, but they're all within the same complex and they're all under the same condominium corporation property management company. Keep in mind, it was much smaller at 839 square feet. It was southern facing as well. It was 2 bedrooms and it was 2 washrooms. But maybe I put it a little bit too strongly when I say it was much smaller. You're really looking at around 80 square feet, which is a decent size, but it's not like 150 square feet, right? So here the layout is a little bit, I would probably have to say, And here the layout, as you will see in this comp that sold. And as you see, this sold for $665, as we see here. When did it sell? January 21st of 2023. Now, once again, the market is hotter, but it's not as if we're compared to Q4 of 2022. So the market is much closer to early Q1 of 2023 than it is Q4 of 2022. And it is on the lower floor, there's no question about that. But the layouts are kind of equally non-functional. If anything, I would say this is more functional. And I'm saying this as a person who's not a fan of when they do this additional den or bedroom as a sliding door. I hate these, but even provided for that, I would say this is a bit more functional than what we saw in the previous listing. It's a narrow layout, there's no question about it, but at least there are grounds to work with. And once again, this sold for $665. When you make the proper adjustments, you account for the fact that it's smaller, you account for the fact that it's on a lower floor. The difference is not 110 or 130,000, which the other listings sold for around $795 once again, and this sold for $665. So from what we have covered thus far, I would probably have to say this most previous listing is the one that I would rank in terms of least favorable, in terms of how much they could have worked on the price. But I always want to mention once again, and I hate to repeat this, but it's just a fact. People have to understand that, hey, if the buyer of this property fell in love with the building and they have memories in the area, you can't quantify that. And guess what? I can't judge that part of it, but I don't know that part of it. But let me know if you're interested in this series going forward, where I review the sales of the past week and go throughout the entirety of the GTA, use the sales as a bouncing off point to talk about the market, talk about areas, talk about buildings, talk about those particular communities and neighborhoods. As always, this is Sam from Saberi Real Estate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. Also, feel free to get in touch with your questions as well, or get in touch if you have any inquiries or needs with regards to the Toronto and GTA real estate market. Many of you have gotten in touch with me. I have been lucky enough to make a lot of new friends and clients through this channel, and I look forward to meeting you as well. Thank you very much.